We're joined by Zuhdi Jasser. He's the founder and president of the American Islamic Forum for Democracy. Dr. Jasser, thank you for being with us. What would you say is Hamas's agenda?
Well, I'm glad you went through all of that. I think it's very important for people to realize that Hamas is a terrorist organization and remains listed as that. And you'll see its apologists like Ilhan Omar. I think you gave her too much credit. There was, frankly, idiocy in her comments in which she described occupation. Gaza is not occupied. It hasn't been in over a decade and a half. And yet that's the language they like to use. And I think it's typical that they depend on the world community not dealing with facts, not dealing with the fact that this latest round of rockets that they initiated was started by a Palestinian Islamic Jihad a rifler who shot an Israeli soldier. Israel responded to shoot at Hamas outposts that they felt were attacking them, and then they began Hamas with a round of now 700 rockets, if not more. So the fact is that they're the terrorists, they're the initiator of this attack, and Israel is simply defending itself, and yet somehow they use the propaganda to make it appear that they're the victims, which is typical for the way terrorists act. They do a random act of violence, they then respond with propaganda that says they were the ones who attacked, which radicalizes their community. So what they get out of it, Michelle, is more violence, radicalization. And by the way, Iran Palestinian Islamic Jihad is a wholly subsidiary of Iran. So therefore, they get a lot out of instigating violence, because Syria, then they can divert Israel's attention from Syria, where they will continue to arm Hezbollah and continue to create chaos in the region.
Zuhdi, it's interesting the response that we heard from President Trump to all of this. Of course, he supported Israel's right to defend itself, but he was calling out directly to the Palestinian people in his tweet. He tweeted this: "Once again, Israel faces a barrage of deadly rocket attacks by terrorist groups Hamas and Islamic Jihad. We support Israel 100% in its defense of its citizens. To the Gazan people, these terrorist acts against Israel will bring you nothing but more misery and the violence, and work towards peace. It can happen." Zuhdi, it seems that he is calling on the people to challenge the leadership of Hamas, and similar sentiments have been conveyed by Middle East envoy Jason Greenblatt, at least via Twitter, telling the people of Gaza that it's their leadership that is preventing them from having better lives. What do you make of that? Do you see that tactic potentially working and appealing directly to the people of Gaza?
It has to. That is the theme across the Middle East, which is, it's not Israel's fault, it's not America's fault, it's their tyrants' fault. And the tyrants in Gaza are Hamas. The tyrants are Palestinian Islamic Jihad. And as I've said for decades, and as my family has when they left the region in the 60s, when they called for revolutions against Fatah and Hamas, and over for decades, we've been saying, now with the Arab awakening, they need an Arab awakening in their area against their own leadership to begin to finally say enough is enough. We need a revolution against Hamas, done with the terrorist charters, done with the radicalization, and begin to actually have folks that can come to the peace table and be actual moral. As we begin Ramadan today, where are the Muslims that can reject this kind of violence and say, this isn't us? We are not terrorists. We don't attack civilians. We follow Geneva Convention. All of those Muslims are sitting in their basements because they're being controlled by Hamas, who's throwing out rockets. And then, unfortunately, Israel has to respond to keep themselves safe. So really, as President Trump has said, as Nikki Haley asked Ilhan Omar in her idiotic tweet, said, what are you talking about? Is this cycle going to end with Hamas's rockets ending? That's where it starts. Hamas starts it, and it can stop with them.
Zuhdi Jasser, thank you so much. Founder and president of the American Islamic Forum for Democracy. Appreciate it.
Thank you.